Knowing the proper way to stack buffs and debuffs in Call of Dragon is a vital and necessary thing in order to properly build talents, warpets, anything related to open field combat. So in this video we're going to be reviewing a spreadsheet and I'm going to be explaining how buffs and debuffs really work in Call of Dragons. What is up guys, MEOWER here back with a brand new Call of Dragons video. Buffs and debuffs are everywhere in Call of Dragons, though it might seem a little simple when in reality it's a bit more complex than you think, because you might be over buffing or under debuffing. So if you don't know what those terms means, we have a spreadsheet here that we're going to be looking at and we're going to be expanding upon from that spreadsheet. So without further ado, I'd like to make a shout out to Markeel. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering his pronunciation, but I have the spreadsheet pinned in the MEOWER's Den. Of course, the link is in the description. I would love to see you all there because we might also begin account coaching soon. So I would love to hear your opinion on that. But before I ramble any further, don't forget to drop a like, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get started. So starting off, there are multiple buffs and debuff sources in Call of Dragons, but we're gonna be taking it nice and slow and looking at each and every source, and then we're gonna be explaining what those buffs and debuffs do and how can you avoid overbuffing or stacking debuffs that are in reality not as effective as you think. So starting off, we got the faction buffs. I'll just be looking at the generalized stuff. I'm not going to be going extremely in depth in the faction buffs because everyone has access to those, so there's nothing special here. But the main key points to keep in mind is that all units for the Spring Wardens gain an extra 5% March speed, all units for the League of Order gain an extra 3% magic defense, and all units for the Wilderburger gain an extra 3% physical attack. Some other key points, such as that mages get an extra 20% defense, here 20% HP, 20% attack for Weatherberg, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty nice spreadsheet that is pretty mapped out. It's a very nice one. I would 100% recommend you take a look at it. It's super nice, it's super compact, and it's super well made. Next up, we're going to be looking at the multi-legion command skill sources. So these are the sources of debuffs or buffs that are provided from commanders. So we got here Ensnare. So one thing I would like to clear out about buffs and debuffs. Some skills do the same effect, however, they have different names. These skills stack. Okay, so for example, if we got a snare and we got a freeze, both of them slow people. However, those debuffs stack. But if you have two types of freeze, so for example, Waldir and Villain both inflict freeze, the debuff that gets prioritized is the higher percentage. So say for example, if Villain has 25% freeze, while Waldir only provides 20%, it will prioritize Villain's 25% and override Waldir while refreshing the duration. But if they're both equal, you're just refreshing the duration overall without really overbuffing. They don't stack, okay? Debuffs do not stack, while in contrast, buffs do stack, but overall with a diminishing return. Okay, so again, Ensnare is a pretty unique debuff. We see here in the explanation that unique buff for debuff goes from the what do you call it? Has the green coating, and the regular one has the regular gray coating. So Owen has Ensnare, Lilia has Scorch. Scorch is a debuff that does magic damage over time, and then we got buffs such special debuffs such as Gloom or Magic Defense Break. The same principle applies for Magic Defense Break. I would assume the sum total of debuffs applies, such as Defense Break in general, which is 40%. If I remember correctly from what CS said, you cannot exceed 40% total of any debuff in general. So no matter how many sources you are tackling, 40% is the max, and you can't really stack some certain debuffs because some of them have unique names, and debuffs with unique names don't stack, they just refresh the duration. So a little example would be Nika and Theodore. So Nika has a bruise debuff, reducing their HP by 30%, while Theodore also has the same bruise, reduces HP by 30% when he is level 5. I'm not really working on Theodore, so I don't have a level 5 yet, but that's beyond the point. Uh, Once Bruise hits, if both of them hit at the same time, it will not stack, only one of them will go through and it will last 3 seconds. But if both of them get cycled between each other, it will extend all the way to 6 seconds in total if there is a 3-second differential between applying both debuffs. And then we got stuff like Rage Accumulation, that is a debuff, Poison from Guanwin, so on and so forth. Like, you can just check all the sources here in the spreadsheet. It's super handy, it's super nice, it's super cool, not gonna lie. So be sure to check them out. The stuff that I really wanted to emphasize on is some buffs don't really affect the rage skill damage, such as Adrenaline Rush, that is in the overall tree. So some buffs, while they buff your normal attack damage, they don't really buff your skill damage. So stuff like Adrenaline Rush doesn't really impact your skill damage, while a flat out stat boost to your legions, such as improved attack, will improve your skill damage, and so on and so forth. Everything stacks from buffs, but they have diminishing returns, while of course if they share the same name, it will simply just refresh. They do not stack. It's the same principle overall for all types of buffs and debuffs in the game, just to prevent a balancing disaster from having happen, such as an overwhelmingly buffing and debuff march. So fair offense here are removing infantry's increased defense is huge. That is super nice. So we can see here explanations on the buffs and debuffs from talent. I'm not sure if he's finished it yet or not. I have to have a talk with him, but I'm pretty sure this tree is this column is definitely missing some stuff, but that's beyond the point. And we can see here the specialized names for sources of talent tree buffs and so on and so forth, and then commander legion buffs and debuffs, all the names and everything and what they do. So it's important to keep in mind what those names do, because if they are constantly appearing, that means you're not doing something right, because you don't want to have the same exact debuff type present over and over again, unless it's an extremely OP one, such as Cowardice. You want Cowardice on everyone if possible. It's such an OP debuff, it's insane. You want stuff that increases your damage, increases damage over time, you know, and so on and so forth. Like, it's all super nice, and it's super easy to get disillusioned with on certain buffs and debuffs. So you want to stack your buffs and debuffs properly, so you're not overwhelming yourself or not being as efficient as you usually should be. And then here we see if multiple commanders have passion, where'd it go? But yeah, there we go. If multiple commanders, say, provide passion, such as Emrys, Chakcha, Alistar, and actually, wait, Chakcha provides passion. I knew my boy was so OP. It will prioritize Emrys and then the second highest percentage, and then the so on and so forth, and scales down to Chaksha. Same principle for buffs as well, debuffs as well. The logic is the same, just different situations. And then here we got stuff that is just skill sources, ensnare, magic defense, you know, just a cleaner showcasing. One thing I also want to showcase is that if you are using the Ice Lizard on one of your warpets, the slow here that it provides is not really worth it if you're using this warpet on a for example, Waldir or a Felon, because you're missing out on the utility aspect, because most people tend to use it for the utility aspect. But yeah, other than that, there's really not much to say. pretty sure that's everything that you need to know about how buffs and debuffs work in Call of Dragons. If you are confused by anything or have any questions, feel free to reach out on the Discord. I would love to see you all in the den. Again, big shout out to Mark Heel. And if anyone is interested in account coaching, do let me know. I have a survey up right now on the MEOWER's Den. Maybe we can experiment on some stuff like that, showcasing what the do's and don'ts and whatnot for accounts and your progress, so you maximize your time playing the game, maximize your investments if you're spending money, and just having overall the most fun possible, zeroing people and killing people left or right. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to subscribe, join the Discord, the link is in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Meow meow.